Chris here with High Seas Cruising, back again with some more cruise news. And we actually have quite a bit of cruise news for you today. Several stories have come out, some updates have come out. I've got some Norwegian updates. Unfortunately, we have had some more cruise cancellations. I've got an update on Royal Caribbean's Spectrum of the Seas. I have an update on sailing returning to Hawaii. And unfortunately, I do have some cancellations for Key West. We've got some good news and some bad news, unfortunately, today. But let's jump right on in. And I actually want to start with some information that was put out by CLIA. So CLIA is the Cruise Line International Association. It's kind of a large group that all of the cruise lines belong to. And due to some recent news stories, they seem to constantly be saying outbreaks on the cruise ship, outbreaks on the cruise ships. And in response to the CDC's upgrading the threat level to cruising, well, CLIA has put out some facts about cruising as a way to kind of balance out the discussion to say, is cruising really as bad as they are indicating it might be in news stories? Is it really so bad that the threat level had to get raised? So here are some actual facts from CLIA. So more than 100 cruise ships have returned to U.S. waters, carrying more than 2 million people from a U.S. port since late June of 2021. Okay. The cruise industry is the only industry in the U.S. travel and tourism sector that has required both vaccinations and testing for crew and guests. The vaccination rates on board a cruise ship are upwards of 95%, significantly higher than the overall U.S. population, which is hovering at 62%. In the U.S. alone, the cruise industry administers nearly 10 million tests per week. That's 21 times the rate of testing in the United States. The latest data shows that even with higher rates of testing, the cruise industry continues to achieve significantly lower rates of occurrence of COVID-19, 33% lower than onshore. And finally, according to the CDC's color coding system, a cruise ship may be determined to be yellow and therefore subject to CDC observation if a threshold of 0.10% or more of its passengers, an example 7 out of 6,500, have tested positive in the last 7 days, or if even just one crew member tests positive. And then, like I said, this is just to show a balance between what is reported in the news and is what is actually going on in the cruise industry. And I know some people out there, and I've seen it in the comments before, will say comparing cruises to venues on land is apples versus oranges. Okay, I got that, but here is my counter to that. According to the news and according to the CDC, there is a higher risk of catching COVID and testing positive for COVID-19 on board cruise ships because the people are in close contact. According to the news and some of these news stories, cruise ships are nothing but floating petri dishes. So if that was the case, then I would truly believe that the percentage of positive cases on board cruise ships would be higher than it is on land. Okay? Here on land, you can spread out more. You're not stuck on a cruise ship. But even with those differences, the percentage on cruise ships is lower than it is on land. And so you could say apples and oranges all you want, but I'd say the numbers don't lie. So now we have Royal Caribbean's Spectrum of the Seas. Now she is sailing out of Hong Kong. Different set of health and safety protocols. And after reading through this story, I'm glad we don't have some of the health and safety protocols they have over there in Hong Kong. So Spectrum of the Seas departed Hong Kong. Before the cruise was over, they canceled it mid-cruise, brought them back to Hong Kong, and have already canceled the next cruise as well. And you would say, well, there obviously is COVID cases on board the cruise ship. Why else would that happen? Yeah, no. Turned out that actually wasn't the reason. COVID was the reason, but it turned out it wasn't on the cruise ship. So there were 9 individuals on the cruise ship that had been identified as close contacts of someone on the shore that had tested positive for COVID-19. Okay, and the positive case had never boarded the cruise ship, but these 9 individuals were determined to be close contacts. As soon as the cruise line was informed, They were immediately put in isolation. They were given a COVID test and they tested negative. However, the cruise was still canceled. They returned to port, and even the next cruise has been canceled as well because of the requirements. Everybody on board had to be tested. The crew has to be tested again to verify there are no positive cases on board. So half a cruise lost, a whole other cruise canceled, and so far there have been no positive cases of COVID-19 on the spectrum of the seas. So you can kind of see how the health and safety protocols over there differ from how they are here, because even with a few positive cases on our ships here, they're still sailing. They had one canceled and it turned out they had no positive cases on board. We are finally one step closer to resuming sailing to Hawaii. Now, it has been 2 years since we've had a cruise ship call in Hawaii since the start of the pandemic. Well, officially, Carnival Cruise Lines and Norwegian Cruise Lines have finalized the port agreements with Hawaii in order to resume sailing. Now, with these port agreements, there are a couple things that you need to know. One, most importantly, is that according to the Department of Transportation, both Carnival Cruise Lines and Norwegian Cruise Lines have agreed to only fully vaccinated sailings. Okay, now for Norwegian, this isn't really much of an issue. They already require 100% vaccinations. But for Carnival Cruise Lines, if their ship is sailing to Hawaii or stopping in Hawaii with this new port agreement, everybody on board must be 100% vaccinated, which means there will be no exemptions for these particular cruises. So for Carnival, that is definitely something to keep in mind if you have a cruise book that stops in Hawaii on Carnival, or for any cruise line right now, or for any cruise line for that matter, because they all are going to end up with the same port agreement. You have to be 100% vaccinated. And so that's just something to keep in mind before you book that cruise. Make sure you know that if you do not intend to get vaccinated, cannot get vaccinated for whatever reason, you may not be able to cruise to Hawaii. Now, besides the vaccine mandates, the ships are also going to have to comply with some other requirements from Hawaii, including Hawaii's Safe Travels digital platform, where you're going to have to upload vaccinations and negative test results. So there's going to be an extra step there in a Hawaiian vacation or a cruise that travels to Hawaii. So just something that you need to know. But it is the first step to cruise ships returning to Hawaii for those that love to cruise that way and love to stop in Hawaii. There is light at the end of the tunnel. And as of right now, the Carnival Miracle is the first cruise ship scheduled to head out to Hawaii when it begins its sailings on January the 9th. All right, Carnival Cruise Lines has now announced that 2 of their cruise ships, the Carnival Sunrise and the Carnival Conquest, they are going to not be stopping in Key West, Florida. They are going to be skipping that cruise port. In a message from Christine Duffy, she said, "We are still in discussions with Key West officials on our restart plans. For the time being, we will skip the call to Key West for the sailings indicated below. This will allow us to extend our time in Cozumel, Mexico." So the Carnival Sunrise would have called in Key West, Florida on January the 7th. Instead, they are going to spend extra time in Cozumel, Mexico. And the Carnival Conquest was supposed to call in Key West on January the 10th, and instead will only visit Cozumel, Mexico. So if you are on either of those 2 cruises, just know Key West has been removed from your itinerary while they are continuing in negotiation. Yeah, now some cruise ships have already called at Key West. There have been some protesters, and look, Carnival has just decided that now is not the right time. They're going to continue to negotiate. They're going to continue to discussions and see if they can come to some type of agreement before they resume sailing to Key West. And finally, Norwegian Cruise Lines. We actually did some videos yesterday where we talked about cancellations on board the Norwegian Getaway. We talked about a cruise that was stopped after only 2 days on board the Norwegian Pearl. Well, with Norwegian, the hits just keep on coming, and the number of canceled cruises and delayed cruise ships is now up to 8. 8 cruises have been affected by cancellations or have been canceled from Norwegian Cruise Lines. So they have sent out an email to those that are affected by these moves and cancellations. Go ahead and read some of this to you here. As part of our commitment to you and the guest experience, keeping you informed and maintaining the health and safety of our guests, crew, and the communities we visit continues to be a top priority. We are focused on providing the safest and best vacation possible as we continue with the thoughtful redeployment of our fleet around the world. With that in mind, and due to ongoing travel restrictions, we are further suspending the return to service dates for the following ships. All right, so new return to service dates. The Norwegian Sky will be returning March the 2nd, 2022 from Miami, Florida. The Pride of America is now returning March the 5th, 2022 from Honolulu, Hawaii. The Norwegian Star will return April the 3rd, 2022 from Barcelona, Spain. The Norwegian Sun will return May the 5th, 2022 from Seattle, Washington. And the Norwegian Spirit will return May 7th, 2022 from Tahiti. Now, additionally, we have decided to cancel the following previously scheduled sailings. The Norwegian Getaway, January the 14th, 2022 from Miami, Florida. The Norwegian Pearl, January 17th, 2022 from Miami, Florida. And the Norwegian Jade, March 30th, 2022 from Rome, Italy. All right, so we have some canceled cruises. We have some delayed starts for Norwegian cruise ships. And as I said, Norwegian is citing a rise in COVID cases, rise in Omicron, a rise in travel restrictions for the places and ports that they visit have caused these delays and have caused these cancellations. Like I said, if you are affected on any of these sailings, you should have already or will be receiving an email from Norwegian Cruise Lines letting you know about the refund options, future cruise credits, and offers that they're going to make to you. Like I said, that should all be in your email. We went over what they are currently offering in yesterday's video, if you want to go check that out specifically to what they are offering. And again, I've got to say it, that canceled cruises is not what we were looking for. This is not the start to 2022 I was hoping for. I'm starting to feel like we are sliding a little bit backwards instead of moving forward. You know, right now it's one step forward, two steps back as we try to fight through this Omicron variant. I don't think it's going to last. I don't think it's going to be forever. I think we're going to start to flatten out and, head down the downhill side of this here shortly, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. I truly believe that, but we haven't actually started that yet, and we're not actually there yet. And saying, I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch. All right, I hope you have enjoyed today's video. If you have, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up. Have yourself a great day, and like always, we will see you out on the high seas.